Hello everyone, welcome to another Spatial Daily Dose. Today we'll learn a little bit about Lambda functions. Lambda functions are useful for programming contexts and often not really very much used when we are thinking of spatial analysis. But I'll try to convince you that using Lambda functions in Python actually makes your life much easier. First, let's use an example of a simple Lambda function and its application. So let's say that we got a certain set of numbers and we want to do something where we can square these numbers up. So we'll take the list and we'll map it to a Lambda function. And we're trying to square that list, which is brought by numbers. Print squared. And there it is. So a simple Lambda function example would be, we have a set of numbers, we are creating a squared, which is basically, we're trying to square these numbers, and we're using several different things. We are using a list, so that it iterates to a given list that we have available, and then we use to map these numbers over the Lambda function. And here's the Lambda function. So Lambda function is basically, it takes a value, x, and then for that value, it squares it. So it's basically squaring 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared for the numbers that we have available. If you print it out, we will have 1, 4, 9, and 16. So another example of that would be if you would have, for example, the list of 2, 3, 4, 5. And we could use, let's say, subtraction. We'll take a list, we are mapping out the list, and we're using a Lambda function for x, and this time we will just say x minus 1 from said list that we have of, let's call it numbers 1. And let's print out subtraction. And here we go. It's taking 2 minus 1, 3 minus 1, 4 minus 1, and 5 minus 1. Imagine that we're using spatial data. Lambda functions can be actually integrated in a way that become useful. So let's imagine that we've got a sample data set. The sample data set has latitude, longitude, and particle matter and NO2 levels. So that's our spatial data set. So let's call this pollution data. So I'll just copy paste what I've done here. So what I have here is a made up data set where I have latitude, longitude, and then PM2.5 and NO2 levels. So a Lambda function would be to sort of sum up the pollution for each of the cities and keep the coordinates as well. So I would create a variable called sum, and I guess that's probably not the most efficient way of using the Lambda function because I'm defining it as something. So usually a Lambda function would be better used when it's like that. It's inside a index of numbers where it can be simply called upon. But anyways, let's, for the sake of this, try to imagine that we're using a Lambda and we're going to use PM2.5. And then we will use NO2, and these two variables that I've got here, I'm going to sum them up, right? Because I want to sum them up to sum up the pollution. So now I define the sum pollution data for my Lambda function, and I can go further ahead and define, I'll start with my lat, go on with my long, I've got my sum pollution, which I know has two variables in it that I need to call on. And now I'm going to define that this happens for lat along PM2.5 into NO2 in pollution data, which is defined here, right? So in pollution data, right on. Oh, and I've got a typo here, so let me just remove this, and now it's working. Okay, close the brackets, wrong. And now I need to close the brackets in pollution data, and to close the brackets here. Okay, now I've got a summed pollution data that I set together. See, what I want to do is display the results. So let's see if I actually managed to sum this together. The results for data in summed pollution data, and just simply print it out, right? So let's use the printf statement, location, and now I can use the data in use for 0, and then data for 1, right? No, that's wrong. For 1, and then combined pollution level. Okay. Oh, and it didn't show up because I forgot to put the sum pollution data to show the sum pollution data, which would be data 0, data 1, and then finally here we would have data 2. And now I should be able to show the location, which got coordinates in, and combined pollution level for these. And there you go. Awesome. So now I've got the combined pollution level data for it. And given that I have the coordinates over the locations, I can then map this out, and I would have the combined pollution data levels. Thanks very much for watching, and don't forget to press the like button and subscribe.